Let's go, Bandit. Peace and prosperity, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. And today, we are going to be teaching Bandit, the miniature pincher, the down position. That's what we're going to be doing now. I personally find it somewhat difficult to teach small dogs the down position because they're pretty much already down. So maybe it's me, I don't know, but that's one of my toughest obstacles is teaching a small dog the down position, right? So I'm going to show you guys how I do that with a small dog, especially a small dog like Bandit that has some pretty extreme temperament issues, right? He is extremely neurotic, right? He is extremely anxious, and he has some fear aggression, right? So, and reactivity, which typically if you have a dog that's anxious and fearful and neurotic, there is going to be some reactivity, right? So teaching a fearful, reactive, neurotic, anxious dog how to do the down position. Are you guys ready? Let's do it. Okay, so first thing we got to do, we got to get his brain warmed up, right? Because he's fresh out the kennel, right? So he's kind of getting the kennel jitterbugs out, right? He just kind of wants to bounce around and rub around and do all the stuff that dogs do, as you can see. So we got to get his engagement first, right? Anytime you work with a dog, it's very important that you get their attention first. It's literally like talking to a crowd of people and nobody is giving you their attention, right? And you can tell if you're talking to a crowd of people, you can tell if you have their engagement. You can tell if you have their brains, right? So I have to get his brain first. If I don't have his brain, the body will not follow, right? So that's the first thing we got to do. And what I'm going to do to use that is food. Why? Because he loves food and it's a great motivator. And I got to feed him anyway. So why not use it as a motivational tool, right? Now, the other tool that I'll always have handy is my handy dandy slip lead, right? This is probably, when it comes to basic obedience, this is probably my absolute favorite tool to use. It's a talk, I'm gonna be honest with you. I really don't get excited to use food with a dog. That's just me personally, right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. That's just me personally. Or excited to use treats. I do like using their food as a tool because I have to feed them anyway, right? So why not use that tool, right, as a benefit to me? Because I already have to feed them. But I don't get excited about giving dogs treats, right? Because that for me is an extra layer of something else that I have to do to get the dog to listen to me, right? And I personally just try to keep things as simple as possible. What do I mean by that? I have to have the dog on a leash because it's against the law if I don't, especially out in public. So I'm always going to have a leash, right? That is given. I'm always going to have a leash. I have to feed the dog because obviously I don't want to neglect the dog, right? And be an abusive owner or an abusive trainer. So I'm always going to have food. So the two things that I'm always going to have, I need them. So why not use them? Because I'm already going to have them. So anyway, let me get off my soapbox. That's just me kind of expressing to you how I look at external tools when it comes to training dogs, clickers, and all of this stuff. Look, man, if you use it, you use it. More power to you. But it's not needed. It is not something that's necessary. And I personally, because when I train dogs, I do my best to use a model that is easy for the average everyday person to pick up. And the more exterior or external tools that you use, the harder it is for the average everyday person that this dog has to go back home to. It's harder for them to learn, right? So I'm trying to make it simple. It's already hard enough to teach people how to properly manage their dogs. It's already a challenge. So I don't want to make it more difficult by adding all these extra layers onto the process. You need a leash, you need food, let's use those. Let's start with that. And then if I deem necessary for me to use another external tool, like an e-collar, like I really don't use clickers. I don't use clickers. I've never used a clicker. Again, if you use it, more power to you, right? But any other external tool that you can think of, right, then I will deem necessary based on that dog. But most dogs, I am very successful with just a slip lead and food, right? Most dogs. All right, so let's get his brain going. Hey, 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 hey. So what I'm gonna start with, right? I'm gonna start with just calling his name to see if he responds to his name, right? I always start with doing the least to get the most. Because if I do the most to get the least, then when I want to get the most, I've already used the most, right? So I'm bottomed out. I have nothing else to offer. So I always want to do the least to get the most, right? So if I could just use his name to get his brain, then I want to do that. But what does that lend to in the future? A recall. When I call your name, that means come to me, right? So when I call his name, if he responds like how I want him to respond, I'm going to reward him from that. And then he's going to get locked in. Right now, he's already locked in because he smells the food. He sees I have it. As you can see, he's sitting down. So he's offering me behaviors now because he wants the food, right? But the concept still stands, right? I start with the least to get the most. Because if I can get the most from doing the least, then I have so much more room to get even more out of the dog, right? So let's try it, Bandit. Good boy. That's a good boy, Bandit. Yes. Sit. Good boy. So I'm just warming him up. That's all I'm doing. Sit. Good boy. Come. Yes, good boy. Good boy. Sit. Good boy. All right, now that I have his attention, where's my food bag? Now that I have his attention, we're gonna start going into what I'm actually wanting to work on, right? We're gonna work on the down position. Okay, so here we go. Now this is how I do this, right? Now that I have his attention, I don't have to hold the leash, right? Because he's locked in, as you can see, he's locked in, right? So now that I have his attention, the easiest transition into a down position is from the sit position because he's already halfway there, right? So now that he's in the sit, good boy, right? I'm just gonna reward him a little bit more for staying in that sit. Basically duration, right? The amount of time that he holds a position, sits, good boy. Now let me show you how I physically help him, right? Condition the movement, right? So here we go. I have his engagement. Now I use my hand as a signal, right? Because I teach the dogs essentially sign language, right? So when I go like this, down to the floor, I put my finger down to the floor. I have the treat behind these four fingers, but my index finger is pointing down to the floor, right? This is conditioning the dog to learn the behavior based on the hand signal, right? Now, this is something I personally like to do because, again, it just adds another layer to the obedience package, right? But then I also give the dog the cue with my verbal command of down, right? Again, everything must be synchronized. So as I'm saying down, my hand is going down, and then I'm also going to lightly apply pressure to his shoulder region, right? Right here in his shoulder region. And I'm going to apply pressure there until he goes into the down position. Here we go. Sit. Down. Good boy. That's a good boy. Now, as you can see, he kind of turned to the side, right? Now, typically, right, we don't accept that weird kind of laying position, but I'm going to accept it from now because I can always fix it later, right? Once he learns the command, right, it's easy to fix. I just want to build the muscle memory, right? That's all I'm looking to do right now. Good boy. Down. Good boy, right? And it's very important. Here's probably the most important thing, right? As you saw, I'm applying pressure to his shoulder region, right? His upper back, right? It's very important that once he goes into the position, again, synchronization is very important. I reward him as soon as he gets down in the position that I'm looking for him to get into by giving him the food, by giving him what he wants, and releasing the pressure off his shoulder. It must happen at the same time, right? It must happen at the same time, because what that's going to condition him to think is, okay, as soon as I do what he asks me to do, the pressure goes away and the reward comes, right? That's how that works, right? Sit. Down. Good boy. See how I synchronize that? I lift the pressure, I reward, right? It must happen like that. Sit. Good boy, yes. Now that time I purposely did it without presenting the treat to see if he would do it, which begins to tell me he is learning the command. Now I still used a little pressure, right? So I still kind of guided him into what I wanted, right? But I didn't use any food, right? So let's hit the down position again. Sit. No, sit. There you go, good boy. Now I kind of threw that in there as a curveball to see if he would do it, and he did it. And again, I still kind of guided him into the position, right? Sit. Nope. Sit. Good boy. I got to reward that because he's never done that before. He's never came into the sit position out of the down position. Down. Good boy. That's a good boy. That's a good boy. That's a good boy. Very important. I must reiterate. Very important that when you are dealing with a dog like Bandit here, an extremely neurotic, as you see, he's automatically, see, this is the muscle memory that I'm talking about. So now automatically, right, when I put pressure here, right, it's going to start going down. So watch, let's see if he does it. Hold on. Good. Hey, sit. Sit. Good boy. Down. There you go. That's a good boy. That's a good boy. Now, again, normally it's a little weird how he's doing it. I'm just going to accept